Okay, let's get ready. They only gave me so much time. Okay, quiet down now. So we got 15 minutes left, which means we don't actually have time for all 10 groups to respond. But let's get through as many as we can. So, who's going to go first? Come on. Come on. Hello. Got to stop, turn around. They didn't give me all afternoon for this. Okay. Let's start. This group here. You're the first ones. Let's give you a microphone. Okay, who from your group is going to report back? Who's reporting back? That's okay. Just do the maybe the most fun. Or do what you did. Who's reporting? You are.
Okay. Okay. Good afternoon. We actually wished for more time to complete our session, but we did just question one. Yeah, so the sources we recognized, one is the cooking source. Kitchen is one major source. Road construction is another one. The traffic, which is the major culprit. Then open burning of wastes, industrial activities. Then the reason to the why now, why we do this. One is to determine the level of exposure. Then the other, what other measurements will be useful? One, we said meteorological data. Meteorological data, humidity, temperature, this will sort of inform how pollutants are dispersed, wind speed, wind direction. If you can give us more time, we'll do question two.
No. Okay, another group. Who's going to report back next? Okay, we got a group.
Okay, so we were being asked about airborne particulate matter that is being monitored by a low-cost air monitor. So I think the question is quite ambiguous because we looked at it from on the point of air quality monitors. So for the first part of the question, we said there are no monitoring devices in our community. Then we come to the second part of the question that asks why. So these are the reasons. There's a faction of our community that lack awareness for the need of monitoring. Though we know that the smoke amounts to air pollution, but part of the community lack awareness of the need to monitor. And there's also a lack of technical expertise when it comes to its monitoring. Okay, and the second part talks about the airborne particulate matter that should be taken into consideration in assessment. So for my group, we said open burning, household cooking, and ozone. Thank you.
Please, any question? Any question? Yeah. First and second. Yes.
We're gonna move on, and then I'll wrap up. Okay, another group.
Okay, thank you. We identified La Paz as our community, and we assume we are able to measure vehicular emissions level and dust pollution as well. And why? It's because of the economic and health burden. That's why we are doing the measurement. And for question 2, we think backyard open burning should be looked at separately from open burning, of other materials. That's not done by individuals, but a group of people, maybe say e-waste or something, or refuse dump or something. So, thank you.
Okay. Oh, here we have.
Thank you very much. My group has people from about 2 different countries, and we have to consider those communities. The first question has to do with identifying communities where you have a network of 3 low-cost sensors measuring from specific sources. And we discovered that we couldn't find any community that actually has accepted a pilot project conducted by one of us in Lagos that had to monitor generator emission with 3 sensors. Outside that, we didn't have. Okay, we had one in Ghana about mercury as a pollutant in this sense, which is being less emphasized. So it appears that when we measure air pollution, we are looking at particulate matter, and mercury may not be there. So the next question is, what other measurements would be useful to help interpret the low sensor data? We will want to think that to have a comprehensive measurement that sensors, low-cost sensors, we need to include something like mercury, which is what is done in a community in some communities in Ghana. Yes, and then illegal mining, actually, from illegal mining as a source. Now, the second question is about sources of airborne particulate matter that we would think we need to take into account to avoid misclassification of personal exposure. So we are looking at, did I get it well? Okay, in your community, what sources of airborne particulate matter do you think would especially need to take into account personal air pollution assessment to avoid exposure miscalculation? Again, we will look at the idea of including other sources of air pollution that are hardly mentioned. For instance, the mercury we talked about. Then the other sources which are hardly looked into. Like in my community, most roads, are untarred. And vehicles carrying goods and services stir dust. Normally we talk about construction sites. These are not construction sites. They are regular roads that are being used. And then the farming methods in most, in most African nations is about slashing the bush, burning the bush, and then the farmers with machetes bend over to clean up. Normally that process generates dust that they directly inhale. That is normally not taken into account. And then the other one is that as they prepare gari into granules, all over here you hear about gari. In Nigeria in particular, we eat gari. It's a staple food there. So in preparing gari granules or cassava granules, we call gari. They sit over a fireplace and heat up, the granules, to dry them, and directly are exposed to smoke from there. So most of these sources are often not taken into consideration. And we think that if we look at these sources locally, we will get there. The last I'd like to mention is about ground sweeping. Over here, we use the African broom. It's short. And when the cleaner wants to clean the floor or the compound, he bends over and he's sweeping. And the dust is stirred directly into his nose. It's not accounted for. So that is a source that if you are looking at our communities, that is a major source of pollution that has not been thought about. Yeah, and it's done by women and girls with young boys.
That's great. Do we have more time, or are we?
Thank you. So, on the question 1, the locality we chose was Navrongo and Yola. Now, these two areas are very close to the Sahara, which experiences the transport of the Sahara dust from the Bordelid region. And because of that, we'll be looking at PM 2.5 and PM 10 because of the weight of the dusts. Most of the coarse ones are deposited at the area, so that's why we're going to measure those ones. Then, in terms of interpreting the data, we're going to require meteorological data as well as boundary layer information so that we can explain about the dynamics of the transport. Then, the source. Within this region, the major farming activity there is livestock keeping, and we utilize the dry cow dung for cooking. So we need to also measure the exposure of the smoke, and even sometimes the biological exposure from the cow dung when we are using it, whether you crushing it or whichever way you're going to use. Then I think the last question there. So for the personal exposure, I think those are. Then the other things we need to measure, because of uncontrolled and unregulated burning, we have to also look at personal exposure to monoxide, that's carbon monoxide. Then we look at the ozone. Then if you can also pay attention to ultrafine particles because of our way of doing things there. Thank you.